Hello, class. My name is Jose again, and my thesis for this experiment is when I use different jargon that I know with people outside of the group, this will cause them to react and communicate with me differently. Some of the main points I will be discussing about is two articles that I found, one called Talking the Talk and another one called The Impact of Using Many Jargon Words While Communicating with the Organization Employees. I will also be talking about the experiment that I conducted. The topic I have chose for this experiment is language, but since there are many types of languages, like idiom, jargon, and slang, I will be focusing more on jargon. Jargon is defined as particular words that are used by a certain group of people and is harder for other outside of that group to understand. The reason I chose this topic is because once I began taking the communication course and learned that a lot of people change their language in certain places, for example, when I go to a job interview or hang out with my friends, I have two different language. But once I got to know my coworkers and my boss, I learned that they are no different from me. And I start to talk to them as if I was hanging out with my friends. But when I talk to customers, I talk to them as if I was in my interview. I always wondered if I was to go into the job interview, talking to them if they were my friends, would I get hired? One article that I have found called Talking the Talk by Shan Estelle Brown. The article spoke about how he taught a class on anthropology that was also writing intensive course. In this class, it was difficult for the students to thoroughly learn about anthropology because of the writing intensive part and also because it was difficult for the students to comprehend the jargon used. Brown stated that the jargon is a way to pretty much exclude those who don't have the proper education to understand what the jargon means. Another article that I read was called The Impact of Using Many Jargon Words While Communicating with the Organization Employees by Nuevita Potaco and Rasad Jandifard. The article spoke about how it's better to avoid using jargon in the workplace so that miscommunication is avoided. Employees may respond to jargon negatively because it is difficult to understand, and even though management know what the key meaning is better to speak plainly. That way, things run smoothly in the workplace. For my experiment, I chose three different people. The first person I chose was one of my coworkers. Even though he is another Hispanic male in his mid 30s, I always spoke to him articulately because of him being a teacher, I just felt like it was the right way to speak to him. So when I went to work and I saw my coworker, I decided to talk about basketball. But this time, instead of using educated language, I used simple words that he has not heard me say or expected me to say. So I started the conversation asking him, "Did you catch yesterday's game?" And he replied, "Yes. It was a great game." So when I started to talk about the game and what I didn't like and like from the team, he started to laugh, and I noticed he actually started to smile. So me being me, just into the game of basketball, I was talking to him for about 2 or 3 minutes. When I finished talking, I wanted to see his response, but my boss started calling him, so he had to go upstairs to the boss. I saw him later on, and he came up to me. He said, "Oh, I'm happy you feel comfortable talking to me. It's good to get to know the real you." And he asked me if I wanted to go out with him and other teachers to a bar to grab some drinks. So I felt like with him, the experiment actually came out pretty good, and I'm happy I chose him for this experiment because I don't know if other teachers would give me the same response. The next person I chose was my girlfriend because even though she's my girlfriend, there's certain ways I have to say things to her, so I won't upset her or hurt her feelings. In other words, I need to talk to her in a gentle way. When I met up with my girlfriend, I started to talk to her, but I started to talk to her in the way that I would talk to my friends. Right away, she looked at me a certain way. She uh she, she asked me, "What's wrong with you?" And I was trying my very best to stay in character or myself. And she then goes, "You talking to me like if I'm one of your guys' friends, and I don't like it." At this moment, I knew the experiment wasn't going too good for everybody. It wasn't gonna go good for everybody. So then I explained to her that I was just doing an experiment, and she understood and kind of laughed it off. But I knew she was still bothered. Then the last person I decided to do the experiment on was my dad, because he is my dad, and I wanted to see if there was anything that I would make him. I wanted to see if there was anything that I could say or do that would make him look at me differently or ask me what's wrong with me. But with my dad, I have a very close relationship. He's like a best friend slash dad relationship. The hard part of this was finding something to talk about because we don't have many things in common. We get along, but we don't have many things in common. So as I was trying to make conversation with him, he asked me right away what I wanted. And I told him I just wanted to have a conversation with him. He right away said, Jose, if you want something, just say it so I could say no. That's when I knew the experiment wasn't going to work because we didn't have anything to talk about. But when I told him I was doing the experiment, he then said, why didn't you just say so? Let's talk. But at the moment, I felt like the experiment wasn't gonna go as good. It wasn't gonna go as good because if I would have went undercover, it would have went better. In conclusion, I found that people that react to in conclusion, I found that people do react differently and communicate with me differently when I use different jargon. I learned from my experiment and the article that even if people are comfortable using the same jargon that you use, we should still keep things professional in the workplace and in school, so there's no misunderstandings from different people. Jargon is not bad or good, but it's best to know when to use it. It's best to know when and where to use it.